So now let us get into the meditation practice. So please sit down comfortably at ease and we'll get right into it. So, as always, please start the meditation by just relaxing and finding the ease of the present moment and just gradually kind of enjoying the beautiful atmosphere here at the Dhammaloka Center where it's peaceful, friendly and nice and it's kind of a good vibe. So just sit back, enjoy, allow things to be and move your mind towards that positive mental state. And one of the critical factors to make meditation work is patience, just allowing things to settle down. And occasionally you can give the mind a little nudge, just a slight movement in one direction or another, just to guide it in the right direction. And one of those nudges is just to remind yourself that the world outside is always out of control. So come to the refuge within instead. It is inside we find the true refuge. The world outside will never provide a good refuge for us. And if you can, try to feel the delight in the peace that is always there. Especially if you had a busy day and a busy week, feel the difference between just sitting down peacefully and enjoying the peace. How delightful it is, how powerful it is, how it recharges you and allows you to see things more clearly. The peace is pregnant with so much of what we call the wisdom and the beauty of the Buddhist path. please remember in your meditation just to go with the flow of things. It's as if you're standing back from the things of the world and just observing, nothing being right, nothing being wrong. And if you can do that, then even disturbances, they arise on the screen of your mind and they pass through and they leave no imprint, no echo from the past. And you just carry on in the stillness after whatever disturbance arises. In this way you can quite rapidly enjoy that peace and quiet and just allow it to deepen over time. Hope you can feel how nice it is just to let go of the world for a while, put everything aside and just come to the present moment and experience that peace. How delightful it is. And just by understanding that much, you understand a large part of what the spiritual life is about. It's about a different kind of happiness, something more profound, something more meaningful. And now we are coming towards the end of the meditation, and as always I would recommend you take a few moments now before the end just to reflect on how you feel. And if you feel more at ease, relaxed and mindful, ask yourself why that is the case. And I will now ring the bell 3 times. Please come out of your meditation when the gong stops ringing for the 3rd time.